Good evening, Belize, and welcome to XTV's news broadcast for Friday, October 18th, 2024. Making the headlines tonight, approaching storm could develop into a tropical storm or depression. Opposition says delay in appointing an Auditor General is deliberate, and opposition leader removes Faber and Panton from House committees. We take our first break and return with the news in detail. Welcome back with your news. I am MarKeisha Young. The National Meteorological Service is following a tropical system, Invest 95L, which is approaching the country. The system is expected to pass over Belize tomorrow, but its outer bands have begun to affect parts of the country. The system has a high chance of developing into a depression or tropical storm and would become Tropical Storm Nadine if it does. Chief Meteorologist, that is Ronald Gordon, said that the extreme north of the country could expect 4 to 8 inches of rain.
The system has become better organized and currently has a high chance of becoming a tropical depression or a tropical storm before reaching Belize or the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico tomorrow morning. Currently, the chances are 70% of it becoming a tropical storm or depression. Regardless of whether the system becomes a tropical storm or depression, the main threat from the system for the country of Belize is going to be heavy rainfall, and that activity has already started, but we are seeing outer bands of showers and thunderstorms moving across the country from the system, and those are expected to continue throughout the evening and tonight and intensify into tomorrow morning. Rainfall estimates at the moment are for about 4 to 8 inches, the higher end. And based on the current trajectory, the highest amounts of rainfall will be in the extreme north of the country. Indications are that the center of the system will move somewhere north of Belize City and possibly make landfall over northern Belize or over even the northern or the across the border in Mexico. In terms of winds, at the worst case scenario of a low-end tropical storm, we can expect winds, and those will occur mostly to the north of where the system makes landfall. The potential for storm surge will be minimal. With a tropical storm, we can expect maybe 1-2 feet maximum of storm surge. Again, the north of where the system makes landfall. One important threat or hazard is, of course, rough sea conditions. So certainly we will be advising mariners to either seek safe harbor or to remain in safe harbor.
Gordon says that the government will declare a tropical storm watch from Belize City northwards, but could be upgraded if the system becomes a tropical storm.
I will notify you that we have been in communication with the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida, and they have indicated that as of 3 p.m. this afternoon, they will be issuing advisories on potential tropical cyclone 15. And the government of Belize at that point, or within that advisory, there will be a declaration of a tropical storm watch from Belize City northward. This system is within 24 hours of a potential landfall, and therefore residents should be paying keen attention and monitoring the system. Impacts over the country south of Belize City will be relatively minimal in terms of winds, but the rainfall potential is for the entire country, so we need to be on alert for possible flooding. And again, I will defer that to hydrology, but certainly rainfall, it can occur well away from where the center makes landfall. I again repeat that tropical storm watch will be declared from Belize City northward. That could be upgraded if the system is declared a tropical storm.
Principal hydrologist Tennille Hendy says that the rivers in the north may experience flooding. However, she says it is too early to predict how bad flooding can be or whether opening shelters or closing schools on Monday will be necessary.
The flash flood risk in the first 12 hours is not a positive one. However, within the 24 and the 36-hour window, that risk increases to a very medium high potential for flash flooding. And it's, as we normally know, in the west of the country, in the south, and now we're seeing in the north. For flooding, we're seeing right now that the Rio Hondo, the New River, and portions of the Belize River are forecasted to have flood levels. Again, this can increase or decrease depending on the actual rainfall that takes place. Historically, We have seen that for about 3 to 6 inches in Orange Walk district, we had several communities experiencing urban flooding. And so we are reiterating, trying to cement that you need to monitor the rainfall, monitor the water levels in your area.
The Briceño administration today presented a motion to appoint Deputy Auditor General Maria Rodriguez to act as Auditor General for 4 months. The post was vacated by former Auditor General Dorothy Bradley in December 2021 when she reached retirement age. She was subsequently brought back on a 2-year contract which expired on September 1st, 2024 and was not renewed. Today, the leader of the opposition accused that the government had time to plan for Bradley's succession, but that they deliberately chose not to do so because they don't want oversight. Prime Minister John Briceño made the case that they are doing the best they can to fill the post. We hear first from him and then from Barrow.
I want to be clear, Madam Speaker, that the notice went out for a qualified person to fill the post of the Auditor General, and we hope that this process will be concluded by the end of the year. Again, I know a lot of people get excited about it, but we are trying to do our very best to be able to get a qualified person. Even within the Office of the Auditor General, there are challenges as to who best can fit this post. So we believe that the best way to do that is to advertise it, and the people in the office, they also can also apply for that post. It's going to be an open and transparent post. We have no hidden agenda. We want to ensure that we get the right person. We have agreed, and we say it, and I'm sure the opposition will say it, that this is one area that we have to strengthen. We are working with the IMF as it is right now, Madam Speaker, to find ways of how we could strengthen the auditing, the Office of the Auditor General, and also to bring up all our accounts up to date. So it's not something that we are that we deliberately don't want to do. We are working on it. It's a long process, and I know one of the challenges that we always have is that now we're competing with the private sector. If we don't have an adequate person, and I'm saying if, at the Auditor General's office, and I've not spoken to anyone in that office, then we have to go outside of that office, even within the government service or the private sector, and then that's where it becomes a little bit more trickier, because in the private sector you tend to, well, now, especially now with a very tight job market, we'll have to be able to maybe have to increase the salary that's being offered to them, which is ironically one of the suggestions that the NTUCB is now saying, that we may need to offer even a bigger package to get a good Auditor General. So before the leader of the opposition tries to score some political points, I want to make it very clear, there's no hidden agenda. It is only for 4 months. We're advertising the process. You all are going to be kept informed, and we do our very best to find an adequate Auditor General.
Well, I have said in my intervention in the House that this is all deliberate. The government doesn't have a plan because they don't want to have a plan. The government does not want oversight. The government does not want accountability. So this is deliberate. How else could you explain it? As much as I criticize the government and criticize the Prime Minister, I'm not going to say that he's a fool. I'm not going to say that he's stupid. He has been around for 30 years. He knows exactly what he's doing, he and his cabinet, and this is all a deliberate design to keep the office of the Auditor General dysfunctional and therefore not able to hold anyone accountable. We haven't had an Auditor General report since 2014. That's 10 years. That is unacceptable. Whether it started in the last administration does not justify it continuing in this administration, and by not having a succession plan, by knowing that you were going to retire Ms. Bradley after 2 years, or why would you wait until the very last minute to advertise for such an important post if you truly want to see not just the strengthening of the office, but even reform. Some people are calling for reform. You know, there are instances where public officers were demanded to retract and deduct certain portions of their reports, and then when they wouldn't do that, it would not be disclosed and circulated. So we have a problem in the office of the Auditor General, and so there are many reforms that need to take place there, but I believe that starts with the leadership within the office, and there has been controversy that has surrounded the Auditor General. This is coming from the public officers. There's been many controversies, so we hope and we pray that we would get an Auditor General that can come in there and turn things around, but that is not the hope of the government, because if it was, they would have started this process a very long time ago.
Based on changes sought by the leader of the opposition, Honorable Moses Shine Barrow, changes to the membership of House committees were made official today with a vote of only one member on the government side. Barrow himself did not vote yes for the motion, and neither did Honorable Tracy Panton and Honorable Patrick Faber, who were both changed out by Barrow. Replacing them will be Barrow himself and Honorable Hugo Pat, given that Honorable Denise Barrow continues to be absent from House meetings. Panton called it a travesty for democracy.
It is an attack on democracy. It is a travesty and a black eye delivered by one man. I said in my presentation that we are elected to sit in this house to be the voice for the voiceless. And when you remove us from being a part of the socioeconomic framework that includes coming up with laws and making decisions in the interest of the Belizean people, do you know what happens in effect? You silence the Belizean people who don't have a voice. There is no place for a dictatorship in a democracy. And what we witnessed just a few minutes ago is a clear indication that we're moving to a dictatorship if we allow this to prevail.
Let's talk about the claims that Mr. Barrow made that you and Mr. Faber have not been present at many of the committee meetings, especially the JPAC, which you chair.
The records are here at the National Assembly, and I urge you to ask for, and you can, it's public record. I've had 14 meetings of JPAC, more than any administration have ever held on both sides of the political divide. We've had 3 public hearings, and I have had to be present at all meetings. I don't take my role as a representative frivolously. It's an important function of our democracy. And so, as I said, the records are here at the National Assembly. The only time I've had to absence myself from a committee meeting is when I have been incapacitated because of surgery. That has been the only time in 2 terms that I have not been able to sit in a House committee meeting. And the staff who helps to facilitate those meetings will tell you I've been patched in by Zoom, I've been patched in by phone, I have written in my concerns, if I have any, on any particular piece of legislation. So that is an outright lie. We have been diligent, I have been diligent about my role and responsibility as a representative.
On the contrary, Panton reported that Pat has not attended a single meeting.
Well, I know that Mr. Pat sits on the Joint Public Accounts Committee with me. He is the second member of the opposition to do so. He has not attended one of the 14 meetings that I have convened or the 3 public hearings that we have held. So I can speak to that because I chair that committee, and there's only one committee of the House that is chaired by the opposition, and that is the Joint Public Accounts Committee. And that is not something I take frivolously, as I said, because there has to be a proper oversight mechanism when it comes to the use of our public resources. I actually asked the Prime Minister to come to a meeting, which he graciously agreed, so we could outline to him our concerns with the work of the Auditor General, with the work of the Accountant General, with the work of the Ministry of Finance, with the work of the finance officers, because there is a systematic failure in our ability to provide that proper oversight that is required. There's lots of work to be done. And I made it very clear when I was elected by my peers to serve as the chair of that committee that we would not play politics, because it's the people's resources that we have been given guardianship over to ensure that monies and resources are being used in the best interests of the people.
A set of statistics routinely released by the Statistical Institute of Belize is that of the inflation rate across the country and for each municipality. It's one of those sets of statistics that many Belizeans question, as the constant complaint is that prices continue to grow up. However, it is important to note that the inflation rate is calculated as an average over a specific period from several establishments in various locations. Today, the SIB's Director General, Diana Castillo, also reminded the media that a low inflation rate still means higher prices.
What we are seeing in our data is that the rate of inflation, meaning how fast prices are going up, has been slowing. This doesn't mean that prices are coming down, and that's a very important distinction. It just means it's not going up as fast. But if you compare the price level or the CPI 2024 to 2020, before the pandemic and pandemic-induced inflation, prices overall are about almost 30% higher than they were 4 years ago. So it is very true that while the speed at which prices are rising is slowing down, prices are still much, much higher than they were 4 years ago. In particular, food prices, the inflation for food has been persistently high. Even though that as well is slowing down, it's not slowing down as much as the overall average. So the relief is that, or the relief is being seen in the fact that prices will not be spiking up as rapidly, but prices are not lower than they were last year. As long as an inflation rate is more than zero, it means prices are higher than they were last year, and that is very true.
Castillo explained that the SIB does not yet collect data to explain why the prices of individual items are increasing, but says that Belizeans purchasing lots of imported products is a factor that is. She also explains why prices for local sourced products are seeing an increase in prices.
Now, the underlying causes of why prices are rising for these items, we are not at this point able to say that, although we do know that we import the vast majority of the goods that we consume. So if our trade partners are seeing higher rates of inflation, we will see that trickle down to us. And when our trading partners see inflation slowing down, likewise, it trickles down to us.
But what about products that are locally produced? We have the vegetables, we have meat products that are done right in Belize, and the prices are also going up on those.
Yeah, one of the things to remember is that all of these products that are produced in Belize have inputs that go into them, and a lot of the inputs are also imported. A lot of them, for example, fuel is an important input. For the agricultural sector, fertilizer is an important input. One of the things that we were seeing with respect to the quarter-over-quarter slowdown in agricultural production is that one of the big hindrances was the high cost of inputs. And so when your inputs are, the cost of your inputs are rising, this will reflect directly in the prices that consumers pay.
After the break, the minister says latest mile and tenor policy is being socialized. Stay with us.
tile inventory, always embracing the latest tile trends. Design Depot, all in one place.
Cabinet reported last week that it considered the latest draft of the Maya customary land tenure policy, which has now been sent to relevant parties for review. Today, Minister of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, Honorable Dolores Balderramos Garcia, spoke of the latest drafts and the mechanism for recognition of customary land.
So the latest version of the policy, again, which will be fully consulted, shows that government is trying to accommodate the comments, especially of the Maya Leaders Alliance folks, and we're trying to come up with a formula that will be acceptable in terms of the amount of land that can be applied for once the legislation is passed as automatic recognition for communal land if that is what the villages decide. So the difficulty with the concentric circles of the 1 and 2 and 3 kilometers is that in our view, in the view of the government, that proposal was twisted, and really some of the uninformed people were being told that that is all they can apply for, as if the government intends to just maybe put the Maya villages in a box or in just a little corner, you know? Farthest from the truth. The truth is that with the proposal of the kilometer radius, and also now with the proposal of a multiplication by population of the village, really what it is that the people of the village, should they choose and vote to have the communal land, they would be able to apply for that radius of land or that amount of land as an automatic occupation. No, if they want beyond what is proposed by the government, again, once we consult and once we come to a finalization, then they would have to prove, like for instance, a kilometer from your village center is where you have your homes, you might have your milpa close to you, but further than that, then further than what can be automatically recognized as in the application for communal land, further than that, there would have to be proof of use and occupation for about 30 years prior to the ruling of 2015.
The minister says they recognize that not everyone will be happy with the policy, so we asked what happens if the Mayas remain dissatisfied with the policy after consultation is complete.
The Caribbean Court of Justice judges cannot really tell the government what law to pass. In other words, the consultations have taken place over a long period of time, and we're trying to arrive at finalization now. But remember that the National Assembly really is supreme. So what we pass in terms of the law will be what we feel can be generally accepted by the Belizean people, including the Maya people. But again, not everybody will be happy. Let me give you the example of Aguacate village. Some of the people, when we met there, they said, well, you might have your milpa here 1 year. Then you leave that to lie vacant. You go someplace else. Then you go someplace else. But guess what? It could probably go all the way to the Guatemalan border. And the question would be, you have your automatic recognition that you can apply for, but all the rest of it that could possibly be claimed because of having milpas and leaving land fallow for a while and then coming back. The question would be, can that also be applied for as traditionally occupied lands? Again, I don't want to be too opinionated. It will depend on the tribunal when there is a dispute. I don't want to be too opinionated, but clearly, being a responsible government, we wouldn't be able to have a claim to the entire Toledo district.
Opposition members have shared their opinion that the People's United Party has given up on their standard bearer for the Belize Rural Central Division, Honorable Dolores Balderramos Garcia, as they have allowed Kaya North Air Representative Michelle Chabat to pluck off electors from her division and transfer them to his in the hundreds. Today we asked Balderramos Garcia if she is concerned about this happening.
My response is that I will not comment on the politics of it, but I will remind you that I am the duly
elected still, yes?
I'm the elected representative, but I am also the standard bearer for the next election.
Yes.
Having gone through an endorsement convention in July, I will give no further comment.
But I mean, if you're losing voters,
No comment.
you're doing your groundwork to ensure that during that transfer period, you too up your number of voters?
Well, since you're pressing me, you go and look at the numbers and see the amount of work that has been done in Belize Rural Central for the transfers during the transfer period and the ongoing registration of 18-year-old and new voters. You go and look it up.
So then you're telling me you're not concerned what Shabbat is doing?
I'm not going to give any further comment. Yes, I did do my work.
In related news, we asked Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Moses Shine Barrow, about the potential effects from the electoral petition challenge brought by their UDP Kaya North standard bearer, Dr. Omar Figueroa. As is common knowledge, both mass political parties have engaged in the transfer of voters into divisions where they don't live and use several addresses where an inordinate number of voters are registered. We wondered if Dr. Figueroa's challenge will have a spin-off effect or more such challenges.
Yes, it is fraud. We have seen it, as you said, play out on both sides. I'll not be disingenuous, but there comes a time when things have to change. And so I applaud Dr. Figueroa for his quest for reform and to do things different and to hold people accountable. And I think it's so blatant in Kaya North. It's nauseating. It's not as if you had to really look and you had to scrutinize and, I uncovered this. It was literally contemptuous and defiant. And I think, that is what frightened Dr. Figueroa and many of us, that it really went to another level. And we are happy that the judiciary is there and has been reasonable in their pronouncement and found merit and has deferred it to the Supreme Court, and we look forward to see what the Supreme Court says. And we again applaud Dr. Figueroa, also the Deputy Party Chairman, Alberto August.
The Alliance for Democracy is moving full stream ahead with its Unity Convention at Birdsall in Belize City starting at 10 a.m. While the leader of the United Democratic Party continues to ignore their moves, AFD leader Honorable Tracy Panton today expressed confidence that they will get a mandate to take over leadership of the UDP.
We will get the mandate on Sunday from the highest decision makers of this party, which are our delegates. And when we are given that mandate, we are going to follow the mandate and we are going to lead. Wherever that takes us, we are prepared to go. Let me tell you, my friends, I've put myself on the line for Belize's democracy. So there's no retreating for me. I will go as far as we need to go. And I'm sure it's going to be a clear mandate. And I'm sure we're going to win in the court of public opinion. My friends, we're only trying to right our ship. And let me say why. Because when you have one of two mass parties yielding to a dictatorship, you can be assured that will follow next in the country. We need a robust opposition for a democracy to function. And so we must do, and I am one of 18 constituencies who are a part of this movement, a movement for democracy. I'm not so concerned about the keys to a building. The mandate will be clear, and we will lead.
As it relates to natural justice and due process of the expulsion, that is something that is challengeable in court. Have you thought of doing that?
It is challengeable in court, as you said, Marissa. And we are prepared to go to the full extent of what needs to be done. We will only do that, though, when we have the mandate of the decision makers of the party. And that mandate will be clear on Sunday, October 20th.
After the break, international delegation hosts training session held with civil society organizations on human rights. Stay tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen, this
All power to the people.
Today, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, which is an organ of the Organization of American States, held a training session with civil society organizations representing various sectors of society concerning human rights. The purpose of the visit was to increase collaboration with both governmental and non-governmental bodies to help improve human rights conditions in the country. Executive Director of the United Belize Advocacy Movement spoke of the importance of human rights and why such sessions are important.
At the heart of it is really an orientation around the system of the Inter-American Commission and the basic function around how it works within the OAS system. But I think the other part of that really is its values around having convening value that allows CSOs to engage around their various issues so that we could understand more broadly what really is affecting us as a country. And so if we understand that, and there is a person or two in the room who has a clear vision of translating information into action, then maybe that is the way forward, but we shall see. Human rights is some foreign concept. In simple terms, you can't give it away. You can't divide it up. And no matter what you look like, fat, thin, any ethnicity, old, young, child, gay, straight, no matter what characteristic you have, it's yours. The state can't take it away. The state can devalue it by committing acts of violence, but the state can't take it away without your consent. But they can do it as well with your consent. And for the most part, we live in a country where people give up their human rights by remaining silent, and that is problematic because it allows the state to be unaccountable for its action, especially around the way it treats LGBT Belizeans.
Christy Almeida, the executive chair of Autism Belize, said that she was pleased that the agency was willing to listen to the challenges faced by the various CSOs.
But they've started off really well because they've asked us what are our problems, what are our challenges. So that's sort of the debate that's going on right now for CSOs. You know, for the majority of us are really small. We're not funded, but we're trying to advocate and push for persons with disabilities, for LGBTQIA rights, for justice and government reform. And these are not necessarily the most sexy of issues. And so it is nice that the agency is not here to just tell us what we should be doing, but are actually listening to our challenges and the challenges that our populations face.
The IACHR delegation also held a working session regarding the Maya land rights case. Section 6, subsection 1 of the Belize Constitution states, open quote, all persons are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law, end quote. Today, Caleb Orozco of Unibam lamented that despite an equal protection clause in the Constitution and an anti-discrimination act, Belize has yet to ensure that both are enforced. He said that these are to ensure that all Belizeans receive equal protection.
The state has been handed to comprehensive anti-discrimination legislation that includes everybody. Everybody, mean if you're fat, you're skinny, whatever race or ethnicity, whether you're gay or straight, they cover everybody. And the state has been sitting down on that piece of legislation for the past 4 years. Never mind its obligation to address the Equal Protection Clause, never mind its obligation or the national ethos to address the social and economic disparities, never mind it can take the issue to House Committee, whatever issue is, open it up for further submission, never mind. It remains indifferent in addressing tackling the inequality concerns of all our people. And as such, representatives of cabinet should be ashamed of themselves for being so complicit by omission, indifference, and inaction, for not tabling such a bill that actually gives life to their slogan, everybody for win.
It's an issue that surfaces every September. Parents of children with disabilities often find it difficult to find schools that are willing to accept their children. Christy Almeida, Executive Chair of Autism Belize, said that if given a chance, children with disabilities can learn and can achieve true success.
And every September, it's such a hard month for me because I get the phone calls because of my job, my paying job, but also because of Autism Belize. You know, the parents are trying to register their kid, or they do get accepted, but then the first 2 days, then they're like, oh, you have to come to school with the child, you have to hire someone. And most parents can't find the additional funds, they're paying whatever fees, and then find more funds to pay for somebody to be in the class with their child. Again, I understand that this does take time and support, but there must be a medium where parents can do their part, but the schools and the government can support these kids because they deserve to learn. And let me just tell you something, 90% or more of our kids can learn and be successful, and you know, there are a few that have severe disabilities and problems, but for the most part, if we put a little bit of time and energy, especially in the early years, there is such a great probability and chance and everything for success so that they can become functioning members of society. I had an interview yesterday with a Belizean who's studying in Chicago, and she is autistic. And she is now working on her master's with every intention to go straight to her PhD. Just because there's a disability or a label does not mean that these kids aren't intelligent and can't learn. It just means that we might need to invest a little bit more time and be a little bit more flexible so that they can reach true success.
Almeida admits that being a teacher comes with a lot of responsibilities, and teachers are often overworked, but said that for those who are willing to make the sacrifice, there are trainings that are offered for free to better aid students with disabilities.
It is hard, and I know that when a teacher comes out with a 4-year degree, they've really been only mandated to do like one class that would be related to special education needs. So you're right, they're not trained. However, Autism Belize has been working for the past, 3-4 years, offering free trainings to teachers almost every single month. And so I know there's a debate about CPD and this and the other, but really we are out there saying you don't have to pay, you just sign up and you can do our trainings. And we always say that teachers can sign in through the TLI and parents sign in through Autism Belize, but we are supporting and trying to give them the tools. I know it's an investment of time, but when a teacher has a class of 30 kids, we expect as parents that you are going to work with all 30 children, even though they might learn differently, have other challenges. I know this is a debate because teachers are overworked and they're stressed and the classrooms are crowded, but when we entrust our kids to a school, to a teacher, we really want to know that they are going to at least try their best to reach our children, even if they might not be behaving in what we consider a typical way or might have other challenges. We do ask that you at least try. You know, I'm not saying we're going to get success all the time, but if you can try to work with our children, I think that's not, as a parent, I don't feel like we're asking too much there.
Last week, Cabinet gave its approval for the Ministry of Local Government to begin the process of expanding the existing boundaries of all municipalities. The villages and other organized communities are also set to have their boundaries legally defined. Today, CIV Director General Diana Castillo told the media that with new innovations, they would be able to calculate the adjusted population of each municipality and village after their new boundaries are set.
One of the innovations of our last census was that all households were linked to a geographic coordinate. So while it might have been very difficult for us before to do this, because households are spatially located within our database, we are able now to make that adjustment. Now, it is still a process. It will still take us some time, but we will be able to do it and adjust to whatever boundaries these communities finalize on. And then incidentally, we recently published our village or community level population counts from the census, and the reason why this came out so far after the main findings was precisely that, because we wanted to establish or agree upon a set of working boundaries for each of these communities with the relevant government agencies, so that when we allocate households to a particular boundary, we are all speaking about the same community.
Castillo said that the now released village population figures revealed no surprises as communities grew as expected.
I will say that at the community level, the communities that we expect to have experienced rapid growth, this is reflected in our data. In the districts where we have seen growth slower than in the other districts, the communities have been growing slower in those areas.
On the matter of village boundaries, she said the population of villages that cross the district boundaries, like Independence and Sand Creek, included all households within the villages, even if they crossed district boundaries.
It would be the entire community, as long as those working boundaries encompass that entire community, whether it overlaps district boundaries. I don't believe that that is the only village that would cross district boundaries. So the village boundaries don't necessarily have to stay within the district boundaries.
And there has been much doubt among Belizeans about the release of the 2022 census figures. Many expected the population to be much higher than the reported total population of 397,483. The SIB has since explained that they have updated the way they calculate population estimates and believe the new formula is more accurate. Today, Director General of SIB, Diana Castillo, told the media that they are confident that the figures released for the latest census are accurate.
The SIB and our partners who are here with us today, we continuously work to improve the quality of the information that we publish. With respect to the population statistics, I know that this is a particularly touchy one because our previous estimates were much higher than where the census showed us to be in actuality. But we do believe that what we are publishing now is much improved from what was estimated prior. It is well in line with what we see in terms of data from the Ministry of Education in terms of their intake and cohort sizes. Year over year, the Ministry of Education has seen that the intake is shrinking, or at least the growth in their intake is slowing down. It also corresponds with what we see from the Ministry of Health. I believe just earlier this week there was a report that the number of births for last year was the lowest ever recorded. This is right in line with what we are seeing with the slowdown in terms of population growth.
Castillo admitted that perhaps they didn't completely account for the effects of the pandemic, but added that the next census should reveal a more accurate picture of Belize's population.
I think it could be that we are seeing some impacts of COVID. One of the things that we definitely saw was a reduction in the size of our not migrant population, or foreign-born population. And I do think it's very possible that a part of this can be because when the pandemic struck, persons left the country, persons who were here perhaps working left the country, and they didn't return subsequently, or they didn't return by the time we did the census. So it could be. I think as we go year over year and as we look towards our next census, we will get to see a clearer picture of what our population trends are and even how COVID has affected it long term.
And with that, we have come to the end of our newscast. A repeat can be viewed on this station later tonight at 9 and again Monday at midday. Join us again Monday for another news broadcast. I am MarKeisha Young. Have a safe and enjoyable weekend.
News.